Hello and welcome to the Guitar Hang Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Stankorb. Today we've got an absolute monster of a guest on the show. Blues rock guitar great, a man who's keeping the spirit of loud, soulful guitar alive. Mr. Anthony Gomes is in the house. We're talking tone, influences, songwriting, life on the road, and of course his brand new album, Praise the Loud, which drops Friday, April 25th. I've had an early listen and trust me, it's a scorcher. If you love searing leads, soulful vocals, and blues with attitude, this one's for you. Grab your favorite guitar, crank the volume, and let's get into the Guitar Hang Podcast with Anthony Gomes. Got the St. Louis Blues hat on?
I do, man. I'm in celebration.
Yes. All right. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, so I'm a Hurricanes fan.
Nice, man. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm just getting this started here, making sure we're all set to go. All right. Well, welcome. So, a big hockey fan, are you?
Yeah, man. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, so
duh. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's in the blood. Yeah.
The blood, right?
Yeah.
Was that your what were your teams growing up? Just out of curiosity.
The Leafs, and the Leafs.
And Rush and all that.
Rush and Triumph and the Leafs. And now I'm a Toronto Maple Leaf fan first and foremost, but I'm also a St. Louis Blues fan because I've been in the city for a decade, and we go to a half dozen games a year, and watch the games, and it's good fun.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the album that's coming out. Praise the Loud. It's fantastic. Excited to talk to you about the album, what you've been up to, what are your touring plans? I did look at some of the dates here in my old city in Cincinnati at the Blue Note. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're getting out there, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So the album comes out on the 25th. That's right?
Yes, April 25th. So I don't know when people are going to see this, but in a week from when we're recording this. I'm super excited. It's been like a 3-year pregnancy, so we're ready to birth the baby.
Yeah, the actual the record itself is a really cool record, or an indication, a snapshot in time as to where you are as an artist, and it'd be interesting to see the evolution, over these vast expansive years, 10, 20 years, how the albums have matured, changed, developed, how you brought in other influences. It seems like there's a lot of depth to your playing in terms of there's a lot of obviously rock and blues influences, but there's maybe some other colors that would be interesting to talk about.
Wonderful.
So, getting into the album, what can you tell me about the way it came together? Were you demoing these songs, putting together, writing on the road? Are you a guy that writes on the road? Or are you somebody that's always got the iPhone out, coming up with ideas and inspirations, maybe at sound check? Or how do these things evolve for you?
Man, the ideas find me, I try to songwrite as often as possible because it's good practice for when inspiration strikes. It's like I feel like you're better prepared to receive it, but rarely in a scheduled session of working on something do I come up with anything meaningful. It's usually the blast of inspiration. When you're driving down the road, when you're at the sound check at 3 a.m., when you're asleep and you have to decide if you want to wake up and record the idea, it happens. And then you take those ideas and then you develop and nurture them to try to capture how you hear them. What you hear in your head to get it on old school people would say tape, but how you get it recorded.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The ideas, you're right. They seem for most artists to come hard and fast, and not in any particular order, or maybe not in any particular way that you can anticipate that they're going to arrive. the band that you have now, is this a band that's been a consistent lineup for you for a while?
Yeah, close to 6 years.
Yeah,
Um, and then, these are, for a band, that's like dog years, right? Each year is
yeah.
like 9 years, because the road is tough. And
Talking, the band's been together for 6 years, and I was just kind of interested in how that informs the way the tunes come together, the way they evolve on the road, and just the genesis of maybe some seeds, some uh, ideas that came from sound check. Any you can feel that any way you like.
well, so here's the interesting thing: we're starting to play the two singles we have out now,
Yeah.
"Praise the Loud" and "True That." And we immediately noticed that the live arrangement, "Praise the Loud," could be enhanced live. Um, so we've added a few extra bars because in the outro I do this crazy scream and I'm playing lead guitar. That's a lot to ask one person to do at the same time.
Right.
So we've now added like an extra bar or two so I can do that scream and then come in on the solo. And it's really cool. And it's a great moment live that didn't exist on the album version. And we also have a breakdown so everybody can sing the chorus, praise, praise in the last chorus. And that's just, 2 weeks in. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves over time. And for us, you just kind of got to workshop it live and see what happens and see what works and what doesn't work. Um, but I've always been a fan of bands that stretch stuff out. And, you come in, you hit a few songs, 3-4 minutes, and then audience is ready to be taken on a bit of a journey, and you can expand the show, and then you knock them home with a couple of short ones. Like it's a really cool journey.
Yeah. The improvisational nature. Obviously that was the attractive thing for uh, picking up the blues path when you're a young player. Obviously, there's the rock influence. Growing up in Canada, you have the must-haves, the Triumphs, the Rush, all that kind of stuff. But I'd be interested to hear what other things were going on for you. I'm in being able to talk to many guitar players now. You find that geography has a lot to do with a young musician's upbringing. I grew up in the Midwest where not as bad winters as what you guys would have in Canada, but when you're indoors for a lot of the year, it kind of forces you into a different way of immersing yourself in music and film and all kinds of stuff. So I'm be kind of interested to hear, as a Canadian musician, how you think that may have informed your early listening and maybe just your fandom of music.
Yeah, when you have a long winter, it makes the summers crazy because you've been cooped up. So in the summer, you don't want to go to an indoor show. You want to be outside. You want to be rocking at a festival. There's so much excitement that the summer brings. And it's warmed up everywhere in the world, but growing up, it was like, it's the best 6 weeks of the year, and then you've got 8 months of winter,
Right.
And that's a real interesting point, where yeah, you tend to, when it gets that cold, that long, you eventually do voyage out, and you have to be social. But it does keep you indoors more, and it does make you more introspective. And you develop a relationship with your headphones, and you listen to music, and it takes you on a journey, and I never thought of it in those terms geographically. Um, and yeah, like growing up in Toronto, there's a lot of names that the world is aware of, but we heard a lot more of, because one was Oscar Peterson.
Yeah.
About him, so much. And another for me, and a big influence, was Jeff Healey. Um, Great guitar player, and when I was a teenager, he was coming into prominence, and um, a big part of my big influence on my playing on the wild electric blues side was Stevie Ray Vaughan, but it was also Jeff Healey was as big of a factor just because you know he lived down the block kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. It's it's nice to have those you mentioned Oscar Peterson, but just having those outside influences, it it can color your influences or your inspiration to go in different directions. And I think that's the beautiful thing about, for as many blues guitar players that are at the forefront now, including yourself, everybody has their own take on it and is bringing other colors. It's the perfect platform because there's no limit on what you can. It's very malleable. There's and
Yeah,
that,
I mean, there's less playing with the changes in a blues, and I think that allows a lot of personality and passion to be there because you have such a blank, an open palette, and that was always one of the things that attracted me, um, is that it freed you um, to be as wild, let's say, as Buddy Guy was, or as refined as T-Bone Walker. You could you're all playing the same changes, but they were radically different styles, and just exciting to listen to.
when you were coming up as a player, did you find yourself, was it picking up things off records like verbatim? Were you into writing things out or learning things through tab, or was it more of trying to get the essence of your favorite artist? Or I hear many guitar players that they had so much love and reverence for particular guitar players that they would specifically not try to learn those things, especially if they're very iconic things like Edward Van Halen or whomever it might be, because it was um, so special to them that they wanted to do. So I'd be interested to hear, is that what your experience was when you're learning the instrument, learning the vocabulary?
Yeah, I find Eddie Van Halen an interesting topic because I am of an age that I can relate to players that were there when Eddie hit the scene, but I was younger.
Yeah.
So when I started listening to guitar, everybody was tapping.
Right.
Um, Everybody had a funky colored guitar with stripes or bombs or a clown on it or something
Right. Yeah.
that was my ground zero. And I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't want to tap because of Eddie Van Halen," but I think I look at music as a community thing. Um, Using Eddie as an example, I think we know he's not the first to tap. We know that his buddy taught him how to tap after taking lessons from Harvey Mandel, and we know that Eddie took it to a great and amazing place, and it was new to the world in that way. But my feeling is when an artist does that, they give it to music. It's a gift. I'm not thinking when I do vibrato that I shouldn't do it because BB King did it.
Right.
Um, or I do a step and a half bend. Oh, BB did that, so I'm not going to do that. But or you do a little, I can't do that because Chuck Berry took that from T-Bone Walker. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to not suck, and
Right.
to express myself to the best of my ability with my significant limitations. Um, and I think that I try to basically. I wish I was one of those players, John, that could play anything they wanted to at the drop of a hat. Um, but I'm not. I have certain strengths and I do those well, and I have limitations and I don't do those well. So I try to focus on maximizing the things I did well while still practicing the things that I didn't. I'm a very dirty player. You know, I'm not a clean technical whiz, and I work so hard on technique. But I know I could practice from now till 10 lifetimes, and I'll never be the technician like Eric Johnson is. You know, I'm aware, but in my limitations, um, there is a beauty to that. There is a side it's made it easier to be who I am. If I
Right.
could do anything, I'd have to choose. Now I have no choice but to be the player that I am.
Yeah.
And but I just tried to be the best player I could be, and you know, and learn from as many different sources as possible. And there seem to be two schools: a technical player and a field player. And um, I'm a field player, so I work really hard on my technique. And I know a lot of technical players that work really hard on their field.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just a really great thing, that there's so many different styles and personalities for us to listen to and appreciate. Um, yeah, I've learned to not get too down on myself, and, and just try to be the best that I can be.
Yeah. Your fans are connecting to you uh, through your songs, through your singing, the playing. It's all identify. It's what makes you you as an artist, and even some of the great technical players say some of the things that they weren't able to do if they kind of worked on a technique that wasn't terribly popular, it might have been as a way of trying to play something that they couldn't play and figuring out another way to do it. So
Yeah,
oftentimes what makes you interesting to a larger audience is the passion and the commitment to expressing who you are. And because there's only
yes,
one
yeah,
you doing what you do, and whether that be through not being a technical player, or there's many people that would say, "Oh my gosh, I've seen him live. He's definitely a technical player." It's all a relative thing, but
yeah,
ultimately in the form of the style of music that you're playing and the songs that you're writing, you're really trying to connect to an audience. That's the bottom line, and try to make them feel that kind of thing. And that uh, that leads me into another field of thought: is just as a blues artist, it's you're kind of like in terms of touring, you have to really kind of be out there all the time to get to all the different, because you're trying to build this groundswell of people knowing who you are, hearing your music, but it's not for everybody. Getting out there and getting to the masses, that's it's like you're training for you know the Olympics or something, in terms of
it
the
is.
stamina that you have to have night after night, especially as a singing guitar, and one that has such a voice like yours, where it's uh, your throat is you're singing, but your instrument is your throat. So it's
Yeah.
a hard thing to keep that going night after night. So it'd be interesting to hear how you cope with the rigors of that.
Well, there's two for singing. There's two things. One is to stay hydrated,
Yeah.
and two is not to drink alcohol. Like I, even if I hang out with my buddies, I have some buddies that come from Canada and they visit me, and if I have to gig that next week, I'm like, I can't be out drinking beers with you guys, because I'm in my 50s and I'm trying to compete with guys in their 20s, um, and be relevant. People are paying good money to see us play, and I want to be in the best shape to deliver the show that I can. Because no matter how fun it is to chip a couple back, nothing feels better than crushing it live and delivering to your audience what they came to see. And yeah, so it's that commitment. Also, too, I love making albums. I love that side. I also love playing live because it's a celebration of that work.
Right.
And oftentimes you make an emotional connection live that people can later revisit with the recording, that enhances that understanding. Because um, there's a lot of stuff in a 3-minute recording that might get lost. And hearing it in a different way, presented in a different way, gives you a whole new appreciation, even on a different format. Like I love listening to Otis Redding on vinyl because that kick drum sounds freaking massive, you know? And I'm like, I never realized this kick drum was so slamming until I heard it on vinyl. For whatever reason, you know, maybe it wasn't remastered or it was, you know, old recording. And like, whoa, this is something. I didn't get that on an MP3 or on a CD. And now I have a different understanding of what was happening on those recordings. So it's very important for us to get out live and um, allow our audience an opportunity to hear the songs from a different perspective to enhance the original recordings at a later time.
Yeah. Yeah, that there is something to be said just for just getting out there and just seeing where the tunes will go. And you had mentioned that two of the songs off the upcoming album have been starting to morph and or take on new lives. That kind of curious. Any other songs that from the album that kind of have that potential of being? I saw one title that was interesting. It was the Black Diamond Heavy. I was like,
Yeah,
made me think of the pack of strings that I would always see at the guitar shop, the Black Diamond.
yeah, exactly. The old blues guys used to play that those brands of strings, and you couldn't bend them, man.
Yeah,
They were like barbed wire.
yeah,
So I'm glad you caught that. Not many people get it. They think it's something else, but to me, it's being unbreakable and unshakable, um, unbendable, like these old guitar strings. And yeah, I'm curious to. You never know. You even play a song, John, in rehearsal, and you do it, and start off like an album version, and you go, okay, yeah, you know, it'll get tighter, we'll groove it, okay, we're rushing over here, you know, and it's so it's presentable. But then when you play it live, the impression is so dramatic, it's dramatically different. It's like, oh well, that worked great on record, but it's not working live. They need more guitar. They need a breakdown here. They need this to go on for another
yeah.
minute. Or the song doesn't work live. It's we're in mid tempo hell, you know, or
Right.
whatever. So you know, uh, we have a song on East London Loud Guitars called "Hard Road Easy" that the band loves playing. Grew up playing. It's our number 9 song on.
Your audio is cutting out.
Spotify. And every time we play it, it happens. You know, so
Can you say that sentence again? Your audio cut out right at the very beginning. Sorry.
sure. Yeah, we have a song called Hard Road Easy, and it's our number 9 song on Spotify. The band loves playing this. And every time we play it live, it hasn't connected.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard stories of Led Zeppelin playing Kashmir, and by their own admission, the audience didn't gravitate to it right away, you know. Um, uh, so it's sometimes you have to be very familiar with a song in a mid-tempo pacing, and it's got to be placed at the right time.
Right. Yeah.
Um, you know, in the live, and also too, you know, on an album, there's no crowd interaction. There's no. You have a whole other visual element, a whole other way to communicate. Um, a captive audience, if you will, too. They're sitting there, and if the song is 6 minutes, it's not as off-putting, let's say, as if it's on an album. So you have a whole other way to deliver the song, and where you're playing live too can dictate.
Right.
If it's a small, intimate room, they're gonna like quieter things. They're going to like things that nuance is really appreciated in a small room. In a big room with 500 crazy people, no man, they want the flash pots and the jamming and the guitar face. Like, you know, Mel Gibson from Braveheart. That's what they want.
Right.
And so even live too, it differs based on your environment. Is it a sitting audience? Is it a standing audience? Um, and is it a sweaty club? Is it a refined theatre? All these things really dictate the live show, and you have to adjust in real time to that. And that's the fun part. You're playing takes up. You're on a big open festival stage, man, and you hit one note, and that thing rings out like a bell. It's like, oh wow.
Yeah.
And you're in a small club. You're like in the ring with Mike Tyson, man, getting paid by the note.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of leads us into the tech part of it is that finding a rig that will work in a myriad of applications and will deliver consistently. They used to the standard rig for a lot of the blues guys going back 20 years ago was the super reverb and a Strat and the tube screamer and all that kind of stuff. And we've come so far, and technology has done some amazing things of what you can do now. But the practical part of it, fly dates, a festival stage versus it. I'm kind of curious what your feelings are with the Kemper modelers, the quad cortexes, the Fender Tone Masters. They're delivering really great sounds, but the bigger thing is being able to be malleable, going from all those different blues crews, outdoor thing, a theater, small Slippery Noodle in Indiana, the tiny.
I've been a proud Kemper user since 2016.
Uh,
I was the only blues guy playing this voodoo lunchbox that was seen as evil incarnate. Um, Soulless, a horrible thing. And I think it's amazing.
yeah,
And the great thing is, John, like we'll do a fly date. I have a double gig bag,
yeah,
the Flying V and a Strat HSS, a pair of extra leather pants and stage clothes,
yeah,
and shirt. I got my hat on me, tied to my guitar rig, and then I have my Kemper in a bag. They could lose every piece of luggage that I checked, that I bag checked, and I could still do the gig. And
yeah.
my tone will be consistent in Warsaw, London, at the Slippery Noodle, um, and uh, and and if we have a great front of house guy, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference.
Oh, right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I know this will open up a can of worms, and there'll be a lot of people that will say that I'm absolutely wrong. But to my defense, Alan Parsons, who engineered Dark Side of the Moon, um, also plays live with a Kemper. And I know from good sources that he started to uh, request backline of Fender Deluxes because he got people tired of bashing him for playing the Kemper. And then they'd say, "This is the best Deluxe I've ever heard."
Right.
Kemper, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, there are. Look, I put my Kemper against my Marshall in my, you know, studio with my ears. Yeah, the Marshall's going to eat it for lunch. But as soon as you put a 57, $100 microphone on that Marshall, it kind of stops, and running it through a board, it kind of stops being the Marshall.
Yeah.
And like this is dangerous territory. I mean, probably the only more divisive things would be to talk about gun law. I mean,
Yeah.
the guitar players, it's like, oh God, and I hear journalists saying, I can tell the difference. And it's like, well, maybe you can, but if Michael Wagner can't,
Right.
and, he mixed Grammy Award winning albums, you must have, you're in the wrong business,
Yeah.
because your ears are that good. And maybe the player feels the difference when they play. But I just like the consistency. And for, the non-musicians out there, um, let me say that, when you go to Europe, you can't bring all your gear with you.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
you have to rent gear. And you'd be like in Italy and they'd have the Chachi 2000 Fender twin clone, that hasn't seen new tubes since 1968.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make this thing sound good. And it's just the knowing that you have consistency of sound from gig to gig, that puts me at ease.
Yeah.
Now, if we were at a different level and I could bring out a rig, let's say like Joe Bonamassa has, and have text and everything is finely tuned, well, then I might have a different opinion. But for where we're at now, I sure like the luxury of it. And, we just did a Rock Legends cruise last year. We didn't have a tour manager. It was three of us. We showed up to the gig. I had my Kemper. The bass player had his DI. We played a backline kit. It took us 5 minutes to sound check. And like the stage crew is looking at us going, you are lean and mean.
Yeah.
We showed up early. We'd be there, sound check would be, let's say, 5 p.m. We'd be there at 4:55 and we'd be, wow. And this technology enables that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. And in the end, that's for the few people that are listening with their eyes rather than their ears, that they're gonna, if it's not that, it would be something. There's always certain people that do that. But as a touring musician, I don't know that those folks can appreciate just what it's. You need consistency because it's a life that's doesn't afford a lot of consistencies in terms of sleep, good cuisine. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it's There's always it's a challenge to bring the music to the masses, but it's a beautiful way of life, and it's I applaud those like yourself that are doing it with such aplomb year after year. It's a tricky thing to balance. The album comes out on the 25th, and the tour kind of not too long after that, beginning of May when it kicks off.
May 2nd. Yeah, we're taking a whole 2 weeks off.
Yeah, there's so much you can do to kind of get caught up on the sleep and get ready for the next round.
Yeah.
Are there any festivals that are looming in that mix since we're heading into that?
We've got one in Sweden, a really cool one in Romania, and then we're at the Fargo Blues Festival, which is another large one, and a few more that have yet to announce, but so I can't publicly announce them yet, but a couple more real cool ones this summer. So it's festival season is so much fun.
Yeah.
And especially overseas, because you get to see a country in a way you wouldn't as a tourist.
Right.
You're a tour manager, and they're like, "Oh yeah, man, we'll take you to the good spot for dinner," and it's such a great way to experience life in a new country, and then see these great musicians too, and some that are not as well known here on this side of the continent.
Yeah.
So, it's cool.
Well, it's good to know that you're paying it forward to the young guitarists. Like I know that you've had some really great, amazing experiences with some of your heroes that have been really good to you and spoken enthusiasm and encouragement and kind of helped put the major wind in your sails. So it's nice when you're doing that for younger guys coming up. So I always think when you meet your heroes and they turn out to be even better than what you had imagined, and you can kind of see, you can get inspiration from where they've been. That's a beautiful thing in a career in music.
Yeah, and I had that with BB King.
Yeah.
And what an amazing, humble guy. So it taught me many things right off the bat. One, don't be a jerk. right? Because if this guy is this humble, this gracious, and at that time he was in his 60s, and he can kick your butt, you have leave that ego at home. Like, you know, so, and he was such an inspiration in how he respected his fans and how he nurtured the new generation. Because I guess he realized he saw the big picture.
Yeah.
It's beyond our lifetime, and this is going to sound a little strange, but the way that I psych myself up before a gig is I think of all the people who have come before me, even the ones I may not know, that have paved the way. All the blues musicians in the Delta, my rock influences, Jimmy, Stevie, Otis Rush, on Scott, whatever, like all these people that there are hundreds of people that are no longer with us who've inspired me. And there's a piece of them in my soul. And as long as I'm going on that stage, they're going with me.
Yeah.
And that's even more so than trying to be original or trying any of that. Trying to go up on stage with them is and singing with their voice and playing with their guitar in my mind it keeps their spirit alive and keeps music moving forward.
Yeah. That that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I probably a great place to wrap up. I know you got another interview coming up, but yeah, thank you so much, Anthony. This has been fantastic. Kevin was kind of keep it tight, so.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few more minutes if you have anything else.
Yeah,
if that's all you got, that's great for me.
Yeah, I just wanted to, anything to hear. I was excited about the new album, and Kevin was gracious enough to set this all up. I know can be a tricky cycle of doing all these things from, I try not to ask the well-trodden questions, string gauges and tube screamer versus the ball, a little bit of that talk is fine, but I like to hear the human thing. So if you're tuning in, you're not necessarily a guitar player, you might go, man, I had no idea,
Well, so here's the interesting journey with the Kemper, and this might be something.
Yeah.
Again, when I first started with the Kemper, I thought I was a little afraid because it was like a tone that you just call up, and anybody can call up that tone. And it's not really original. It wasn't you that went to the store that bought the battery and you made it the 9-volt go down to 8 volts, so your tube screamer was better, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, your personality isn't really going to come through here, and it's just crap and formula, and no, nothing could be further from the truth, because people are either playing Marshalls, Fenders, or Voxes. They're either putting a tube screamer before it.
Right.
And one thing that Michael Wagner was saying was that he recorded all those 80s records with Skid Row and White Lion and Extreme with an ADA MP1 and the same channel. And the same channel. Like they played exactly the same rig, and those tones are vastly different because at the end of the day, it's these meat puppets over here that really, and your guitar pick. Nobody ever talks about a guitar. Or guitar cable, the length of your cable. Like these are huge influences on tone. But maybe they don't sell as many magazines, or so they're not as fun to talk about. But
at the end of the day, I mean, you hear countless stories of somebody playing somebody else's rig and going, my gosh, I was hoping that I was going to sound like Brian May or whomever, but I just sound like me playing. And I think that's the most exciting and beautiful thing is that you can, just be yourself. If there's a subtext to this whole episode is just being yourself and being the best version of yourself with whatever tools or whatever influences that you can take from your favorite players. So it's at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that are loving what you do and want you to keep doing it, whether it's a Kemper or it doesn't. It doesn't really matter.
No, I think it's what you say, and the love that you put into it, and it really is what comes from within, and that is the human side of it, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John, for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Oh, thank you, man. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Guitar Hang podcast. Special thanks to Anthony Gomes for joining us. Always great hanging with a player that brings that much fire and passion to his music. Be sure to check out Anthony's new album, Praise the Loud, dropping April 25th. It's loaded with killer guitar work and some of his best songs yet. If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure you follow the podcast, leave us a review, share it with your fellow guitar friends. You can also catch video clips and more content on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks so much. I'm Jon Stankorb. We'll see you on the next episode of the Guitar Hang podcast.